Doing something in a high vibrational state sounds terrible because I'm in such a low vibrational state. It's like we can only consider the ideas that are going to maintain our current level of mindset. And I think that was what I needed, was to get home and have a place where I had the structure again, where it was easy to create those routines.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of It Takes Grit. I could not wait to dive into this story. Just reading this girl's bio got me the chills. It was like, I have more questions for her, and you guys are going to absolutely love this episode. So, Mellissa, Montie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited. And guys, if you don't know who Mellissa is, we're going to add all of her details below. You must go give her a follow. She's got an incredible podcast as well. And today we're going to go through, really the things that you need in life to have grit and what it means to pivot, to change. You know, some people say, I can't be different. I can't change. I can't grow. Well, this girl is going to show you exactly where she's been and where she is now. And it's just going to be amazing. So if you're looking for a little bit of grit, this is the episode for you. So, Mellissa, first of all, where do you live? Where are you from? Where were you born? Tell us a little bit of a backstory about you.
I just moved out of LA to Big Bear. And so I just had to get out of the city. It wasn't doing it for me anymore. I felt like I kind of tapped out what I needed from it. I originally grew up in Northern California, but I've moved kind of all over the US, different places. And I've always had that nomad spirit. But for a long time, what was happening is I realized that when things would get too hard or I'd feel lost, I always thought that the solution was to move. And so on one hand, it gave me a lot of really awesome experiences, but it was really difficult to have roots. And it was like I was always running away from something. So when I finally decided to just put my roots down, start something of my own, I stayed in LA for quite a while.
It's so funny that you say that, because I remember when I came to America from England, I was running away and I was like, it's going to be different because I'm going to be in a new place. The same things followed me. I was doing drugs again. I was drinking again. I was a club promoter. I was like, this is literally the reason that I left England. And now I'm doing the same. Maybe it's not my environment. Maybe it's me. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. And sometimes we are always, going somewhere else to find something. So, all right. So tell me a little bit about your background with food, eating, and I know that you also suffered with bulimia. So I want to kind of just touch on that, because I have a very young audience and a lot of people that do suffer with body image and a lot of people who have gone through eating disorders themselves. So take us back to that time and what was going on in your life at that moment.
It's interesting because when I started my bulimia tendencies, it's not like I thought, hey, I'm going to be bulimic today. It was more like I was in college. I was definitely overeating the giant box of goldfish crackers my mom bought me from Costco, things like that. And I would just eat too much and then kind of feel ashamed about it. And I was gaining the weight and whatever. And I remember at one point drinking too much, like I did pretty much every night in college. And somebody was just like, well, if I've had too much to drink, I need to throw up or something like that. And so it started of this hack of drinking too much or eating too much. And it was just something that I would try to make myself do. And I felt like it was some sort of life hack that was just getting me through. I had no idea that it was going to become something that took over my whole world. So before I knew it, that became, I didn't really know how to eat without it. It was like I ruined my appetite at all. I had no gauge of when I had eaten too much based on hunger. When I would feel really lonely, I would just binge eat. I would start planning my binge eating cycles, and I would be at home binging and purging all day long sometimes, spending all of my money on this. It was it really, really took over my life. And at the time, I did not see what else it was connected to, but all of that started just a few months, about a month after I found out my dad. Now looking back, it was definitely a trauma response. It was a way to keep control over my environment or have control over something now. But if you would have told me that back then, I wouldn't have put those things together. So it was a really difficult time. I was pretty heavily bulimic for about 10 years. And it started to get better, but it wasn't like a one moment, like snap out of it, I'll heal this, I never did it again. It was like, okay, maybe I'll do this less often. Or it was really alongside of when I was building other areas of my life. I was doing yoga teacher training. I was surrounding myself with different people. And it was like the more I actually found in inner happiness, the less I had this real need to do this thing. But aside from that, it wasn't just like, okay, now I'm happy, this is gone. There were definitely, it subsided some of my tendencies, but it definitely still had a lot of tools, knowledge, understanding what was going on. And then I had to basically keep coming back to that. I relapsed one time when my world was spiraling again, and I was like, oh my gosh, these are the tools. I need to go back to the tools and go back to what I know. Because I think a lot of times we think, well, we fixed our life, everything's going to be fine from here. But we don't realize that these things can pop back up if things get out of control.
Well, so you really stemmed it back to when your dad passed away, but how long did that take you to realize that was the catalyst to make you have, the bulimia or go into these binges? When did you realize that?
Probably not until I started to heal. And part of it was because of my ego. I didn't want to think, when I was still deeply in it, I would make excuses for it. Just like I did when I would do drugs, just like I did when I was addicted to Adderall. Adderall was like my miracle drug. I would not see a negative part of that until I was out of it. Then suddenly everything became clear on the other side. And so I think that happens a lot because it takes, to admit why we're actually doing something is to admit the weakness, is to admit the wrong, is to admit that we probably shouldn't be doing it. And I don't think I was ready for that for a really long time.
And so do you feel like, was the Adderall something that you were doing at the same time as the binge eating? Is it like a concoction that you created together that made you feel good? Kind of.
I really had body image issues from a really young age. And I think I always used food as like some sort of crutch. Emotional eating was definitely a part of my life. And so I didn't really understand the people who would just like stop eating when they were full. I would always just snack. And so I had to really think about those things. And I had always known I had ADD tendencies, but I had always hyper-focused. So it really negatively affected me. But then I started to use it to my advantage. In college, I actually remember thinking, I don't have to actually attend class if I go to Disabled Student Services and say I have ADD. I can get on Adderall, which will suppress my appetite and keep me awake longer. And apparently these things are going for like $20 a pill in college. Like I was just like planning this thing. I was like, this is my ultimate life hack. And for a long time, I really held that drug on a pedestal. And when I finally decided to get off of it, it was because I thought about moving to Croatia, and I started to realize how much it was tying me down to one place. It was really difficult to get. You couldn't get multiple prescriptions at a time. It's hard to find. And so I would be going to multiple pharmacies, and I was acting like a drug addict, and I couldn't see it. And when I finally got off of it, it was like this other part of me opened up, and I realized how much of my silliness, my playfulness, my happiness was just being numbed by this substance that I thought was a miracle, but it was just keeping me robotic and stagnant, and it wasn't really helping my productivity like I wanted it to. It was almost like I'd hyper-focus on just whatever was in front of me, which a lot of times was distraction. So yeah, it really was kind of like a cocktail of, I think, just ways to not have to feel all the other things I was going through.
And it's interesting that you talk about like a life hack. Like this was a life hack that you thought that was like, do you feel like doing this was going to make life easier?
Yes. Yeah, I have been public speaking lately, and that's a lot of what my speech revolves around is this idea of always wanting this life hack, something that was going to make it easier. But what it took me a really long time to realize is that you can't hack your way to self-growth. You might feel like you do, you might look like you do from the outside, but all of that work still needs to be done if you're going to actually become a different person, which is the only way you're ever really going to find success, happiness, health, all the things.
Yeah, it's like we always do look for the easy way. It's the easy way, but there, like, if it comes easy, it's not going to last, right? I think there's like some quote that says like, when it's really easy, it's the easy things are not going to last. So finding the thing that's really going to, dive deep and do that inner work. I think so many people are looking for the easy thing. Like, it's like, if you want to lose weight, what's a quick pill that I can take? What's like this one ab workout? No, it doesn't work like that. It takes consistency. It takes eating healthy. It takes working out. And there's no fast track. Even if you want to make $1 million, anything that's like too easy is normally a scam. I actually heard Gary Vee say that the other day on a TikTok. He's like, if it seems too easy, it's a scam.
And not only that, what it does is it creates this standard that you can't live up to by yourself. Like, I was never going to be the person I was on Adderall without the Adderall. And so it's like, if you add this weight loss pill into your life, this Adderall, whatever you're using, drugs to feel a certain way, numbing, you're going to always need that to keep that. And so without it, you're going to feel every time you add something new that I need this in order to do this, it's taking away the self-belief that you can do anything on your own. And it's not sustainable whatsoever.
Yeah, totally. I want to go back to a story I read on your bio about being in jail. And I want you to how did that happen? Where's the story come from? And how did you change your life around from that moment? What did you learn?
I was spiraling pretty hard after my dad died. I was actually sexually assaulted by 2 different people at 2 different times. And so I was just not equipped to handle that at all. And I was going to college at the same time. So I was all by myself to cope with all of this. And that's when I started numbing and doing all the things. During that time, it's interesting. I really do believe in the law of attraction, because I remember I had this friend who we went to Walmart one day, and she would just like steal lip glosses. And it was like, she had no shame over it. She was almost proud of it. So then I didn't really think anything of it. And like, I got into the habit of just like taking something I could fit up my sleeve. And I just had no shame, really. I thought, like, stick it to the man. I don't even know what I was telling myself at that point, but this had become a habit for me. And then it's just really interesting, because I moved away, I moved back. I was still just running from my environment quite often. And I was looking for a place back in San Diego, but I stayed with my mom for a little bit. And I would just hang out at the pool because it was fun. And so I would hang out at these pool resorts, and I met this guy who bought me all these drinks. And anyways, long story short, we started dating, and he was just like too good to be true. He drove a Mercedes-Benz. He was in the jewelry business. He gave me a diamond necklace on our first date. And I was just like, this is amazing. Like, this is the life. And then slowly but surely, this facade started to unravel. He would be really different sometimes. I didn't really know what was going on. His dad died the weekend after I met him. So I was making a lot of excuses, like, I understand what you're going through. I'm going to be there for you. Like, I wish somebody was there for me. And he was cheating on me. I found out months later, he was secretly doing meth. He had a gambling addiction, so we'd always be at the casinos, like literally always at the casinos in the high limit rooms. He'd just be like pumping in hundreds, like self-destruction to a T. It was months of this. Every moment, every time I found out something new, it was like my self-worth was just even more gone. And I couldn't give up this lifestyle either, because I had nothing else to go to. I just moved back to California. I didn't know anybody in that city. Like it was a really interesting time. And it's interesting too, because looking back, I think our lowest times, sometimes we try to explain it, but we're just in a totally different place. And I don't know that girl. It's hard. I can't make excuses for that girl. I don't know what she was doing. It doesn't make sense to me because I'm so different now. And then finally I found out that he was secretly robbing houses. And the way that I found out is I ended up going to Hawaii for a month to get away from him. It was like this lifeline. I called my friend. She lived there. She's like, just come stay with me. I did. Started getting my life together. Was running every day, eating healthy, felt like a new me. And then it was time to leave. And as soon as I came back, it was like I built myself up on the outside, but inside I was still broken and empty. I hadn't done anything to change my mindset, to change my self-beliefs. And so when he called with another sob story about how he got his life together while I was away and how his mom gave him money to help his jewelry business get back on the ground, all this stuff, I was like, okay, well, let's go to lunch. So we went to lunch, and on our drive back, we got pulled over. And so I thought it was for speeding or a busted taillight, something. And then they asked us to exit the vehicle. And I'm just confused. And so I get out and I watch the police officer open the trunk, and there's dozens of lock boxes. You know, those ones that they hang on houses that are for sale for realtors to get in. And I guess he had been clipping them because he used to do loans. So he had all the access to the MLS reports when people were not home at certain times. And he would go in and steal all their jewelry. And that's the jewelry he was selling. And mind you, I was helping him sell this on eBay thinking that he had inherited it from his dad dying. And so I used to be able to just like hold gold and weigh it. Like he was, and his gambling addiction was taking over, and he was selling it all on eBay at first. Who sells stolen jewelry on eBay? Like it didn't make sense to me, but then he started going to pawn shops and all of this stuff. And so I was in it with him, just didn't know what I was in. And we both got arrested. Well, there was an eyewitness report with a blonde girl and a little dog. He borrowed my dog while I was in Hawaii. That was the one eyewitness report. He was also cheating on me. So he was with a girl and my dog at some house. And so I basically had to fight these charges. Because we were arrested together, if one of us went to trial, we both went to trial. And if I took a deal, he could extend the attorney. And I was basically left with this option of proving my innocence by going to trial, but guaranteeing he was going to get 10 years in jail or taking a felony so he could take a deal too. And at that time, I didn't have enough self-worth to not be the martyr in this situation. I couldn't do that to somebody that I kind of loved, even though I was also really mad at him at this time. He would give me these puppy dog eyes, all this stuff. And so as a 23-year-old, I took a felony for love. And on one hand, it was a moment where I just thought I had ruined my life. Like I was the kid who would play video games when I was younger. And if I lost too many lives too early in the game, I would just press the reset button because I wanted to go in with like a full life force and a clean slate. And I just remember thinking about that and being like, I can't press the reset button on this one. I'm going to end up working at McDonald's my whole life. No shame to anybody who does, but like that wasn't my plan for my life. And it was just really, really difficult. But at the same time, that was my rock bottom. And that was when I realized I needed to get away from him. That's when I moved to LA to get away from him. Doesn't mean I did. He followed me. He threw a brick through my windshield. He broke into my house when I was sleeping. It was terrifying. But then he ended up continuing to rob houses because he got 2 strikes and time served for the time he was in rehab, because that's what happens, I guess, when you have a really good attorney. And he ended up getting arrested and spending the next 9 years in jail. So it was definitely a learning process, but it's interesting looking back because I've always been a smart person. I've always gotten jobs really easily. I've had jobs since then, but I thought I'm never going to apply for another job because I'm not going to write this crazy story on 2 lines. And so I started diving into entrepreneurship and learning marketing. And it was really the catalyst that pushed me towards my entrepreneurship journey. I ended up getting offered jobs between that time, but all the knowledge that I gained when I refused to, I guess, drop the ego and admit I had a felony and get some entry-level job really did define my life. And so I think I needed that because I would have just settled for whatever was easiest that made me a lot of money. So yeah, the world took an interesting turn for me, but I guess I'm glad it happened.
It's crazy. When something negative happens to you, you have 2 ways to react. You're like, I'm going to use this to propel me to the next level or wherever I'm supposed to be. Or it's like, hey, I'm going to take it. I'm going to roll over and then I'm just going to accept, like, be the victim and play like, oh, well, this happened to me. This happened to me instead of this happened for me. How long were you in jail for? How long did you serve for?
I was only in for 8 days because I refused to call anybody and ask for bail money. So I just had to wait till I could get out on my own recognizance. And so I had to wait. There was a weekend, there was some backup. And so I waited until I could see the judge and prove I wasn't a flight risk. And I mean, I look young now. So back then, like, I just looked like this innocent little thing, like crying, like, I don't know how I got here. So I was able to get out. But yeah, it's so interesting though, because I told you I relapsed one time with bulimia, and it actually ties into that story because I'd always said that never affected me. My felony really never affected me. It only pushed me. It was like these limitations that were guideposts steering me in a new direction, rather than like, these are limitations and I'm stuck right here. And so I was just living my life, kind of forgot about it. I decided to go to Australia with one of my friends. And this was like 4 years ago, we decided to we just sort of haphazardly planned this last minute trip, and I get to the airport and I can't go because I'm not allowed in Australia because of my felony. And I didn't even really realize, like, this is such a last minute trip. I didn't even really realize you need to do this quick online visa thing. And so we decided to get off on our stopover in New Zealand instead. And that New Zealand trip, we ended up flying home early. It was just not good for me at all. I was just spiraling the whole time. And it was interesting. That was the first time in like 4 years that I had binged or purged. And I ended up telling my friend, I need to go. Like, this is not good I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't have come. And maybe you can also see an alternative world to be like, okay, just make the best of it. I know when I need to take a step back and just focus on me when things are a little bit too difficult or too hard to, I don't know, I just need a little bit more stillness, and it's not the time for fun in something that needs healed. So
what was it when you came back from New Zealand? You're like, oh my goodness, like this, I can't believe this it hits you, right? It's like a wake up call it's like a reminder. We always get these things from the past that like come up and they're like, oh my goodness, really? Is this coming up again? Like, I thought I've dealt with this. How did you decide to, obviously for the time period that you're in New Zealand, you didn't feel good. You weren't on your A game, but how did you then come back and make sure that you just kept going forward? Because I feel like sometimes when somebody get hit with somebody, it's like, that's it. It's like, hey, I can't do it anymore. I'm over it. But how do you find that grit inside of you? How did you find that determination to be like, okay, that sucks that happened, but what am I going to do now?
For me, I've always found the most freedom in structure. There's time where the last thing I want to do is get up and move my body, or like doing something in a high vibrational state sounds terrible because I'm in such a low vibrational state. It's like we can only consider the ideas that are going to maintain our current level of mindset. And I think that was what I needed, was to get home and have a place where I had the structure again, where it was easy to create those routines. And I'm sure I could have. And as I grow, I'm going to be able to be outside of my comfort zone and continue to do that. But at that time, it was difficult. So coming back home and finding that structure, going to my yoga studio, having my kitchen where I could make my breakfast and just get in a routine again, was able to, those things help me not to have to make a new, fresh decision every single time when it's hard to make decisions that are good for me. Instead, it's like, okay, the decision is this one routine that happens to have 10 good decisions. I think the more I would just focus on the things that made me really feel good instead of all of the other questions surrounding, like, how else is this going to affect me? What else do I need to do right now? Like, feeling like that's the emergency to be solved right now. Really, I've found that the emergency to be solved is just, how can I get myself to feel good? Even if it has nothing to do with this problem at hand. And for me, that happens to be yoga and healthy eating and being with people that I love, that understand me, that I could talk to. So that was really what got me back on track.
So big time on structure, just going back to like, it's going back to simple things, just like keeping it simple, keeping it real. That's amazing. One thing I want to talk about is, where are you at right now? Like, where's your life now? What's your mindset like? Who are you? Like, what do you stand for? Like, what do you do? Like, how did you get into entrepreneurship? Because we can see all these things that you've gone through and it's like, oh my goodness, and she's had all these things, but she's come back. Tell people like how badass you are and how amazing you are right now.
Well, as I said, I got some job offers. When I was in LA, I knew digital marketing really well. When I started to teach myself digital marketing back in 2009, I ended up being on all these forums, and I found this contest for tickets to Traffic and Conversion Summit, which is still one of the biggest marketing conferences in the world right now. They used to hold it in Austin, and I actually won some online contest to get free tickets. So I went. I was one of the only females there, and at the very end they had the Wicked Smart competition, and basically you could go on stage and share any digital marketing secret. Well, at this time I was doing everything as free as possible because I had no money to invest, whereas a lot of these people's secrets that they were going up was like also involved putting thousands of dollars into ads. But well, I've always been good at tech, and mine was this crazy way to illegally download all of your Facebook friends' phone numbers. And I had this hack where I was using a Grease Monkey script on the Firefox browser to send all of these mass text messages for free using Google Voice. And so I was like making friends with people in Facebook groups. This was before anyone really used Facebook groups. So the only people in Facebook groups were people that were like they didn't have a lot of friends in the real world, And so when I made friends with people there, I was trying to sell them my friend's sports bra that she had just came out with. She just launched a company, and so she hired me to help her out with it. So anyways, I had this crazy hack, and I went on stage and I won. I ended up winning a computer, but it also set up my freelance career for the next 2 years just off of people that saw me there. So I was doing that for a while. I got a job I ended up meeting somebody at a club. And it was funny because I was bored at this club and I was obsessed with apps. And this guy saw me and he was like, "Why are you looking through the app store? Did somebody tell you what I do?" And I was like, "Who are you? And like, why do you think this is about you?" Anyways, long story short, he had an app company and he ended up giving me a job, and I worked for his company for a while. And I was doing social media marketing there. And then I realized there wasn't a product designer, and we had developers developing this app and no one to actually design it or to do the user interface or user experience. And I was so into apps. I had over 1,000 apps on my phone at this point that I was like, I knew exactly. I'm like, no, this button should go here, whatever. I knew what it was missing intuitively just because I had been in apps for so long. And so I went home one weekend, barely slept because I was on Adderall. And I taught myself how to wireframe and map out the user experience. And I came back to this company that I did not have this specific job for with this big foam board printout about how I got promoted, a really big promotion to product designer. So a lot of it was just like making bold moves for what I thought that I could do and meeting the right people. And when I saw the opportunity, I would actually move into it. So I was working for him for quite a while, and I ended up getting to a point where I was just really unhappy. The boss I was working for was pretty toxic at that point. And so I knew I had to do something for myself. And I ended up trying a bunch of different things, a travel blog, and then realized I don't really like writing. Like people don't think about that. They're like, oh, I could do all of these things, but it's like, it's so important to actually figure out what's your perfect day? What do you like to do? What are your strengths? And so I didn't do that at first. I was following opportunities and then realizing it wasn't for me. I finally decided to go back to the basics and be like, I love to speak. I want to be a public speaker. What can get me closer to that stage without anyone else's permission? So I decided on podcasting, but I decided to go hard on it. And when it started to grow really quickly within a couple of months, I knew that I could actually quit my job and go full into my podcast. And so 5 months after I launched it, I was invited to speak on a stage at Podcast Movement with one of the biggest entrepreneurs in podcasting, Jordan Harbinger. I spoke the next year with Pat Flynn. I just kept reevaluating my goals. I joined another public speaking course, took action from there, reached out to people. And so there's been definitely times where I've lost that, but it always comes back to, well, why do I feel lost? Okay, we'll remap. What am I missing? What do I want to get to? What can I do right now? You don't need to have the whole thing figured out, just the next step. And often when you take that next step, you'll meet the right person, or I believe you show the universe that you're ready for this by meeting it with action, and it then meets you with opportunity.
It's so true. And I love what you said, like when you just went and built the wireframe. I have an app, so like I understand what it's like to work in the app industry, and it's like crazy and things are always going wrong. But like you went the extra mile. And I talk about this in my book. It's like one of the steps of like getting somewhere is going the extra mile. Like instead of just saying, well, this is what, I've been told to do, or this is what you decided to get, do a bit more. And it's those people who, if you just go the extra mile, you do something extra, you add more value, that's how you're going to get further on in life. And you create your own destiny. You create something for yourself just by going the extra mile. So that's really awesome. What a cool story. So what is next for you? Like, how's 2020 been, and how's this preparing you for 2021?
2020 has been a roller coaster for sure. It's interesting because in the beginning, I was like, well, I've got all these tools. I'm so glad for the mindset work I've done because I'm just cruising. I was doing puzzles. I was like really using it as thing hit me. And I really could feel the weight of the world, of everything going on in the world. I was feeling lower than I had before. And again, I think we often think like, oh, I'm going to heal myself from this completely. But I think most of healing is really finding the tools that you keep coming back to when you have more hard moments. And that's what's always helped me go in life. I don't identify with the problems that I'm struggling with, but I know them. like little friends nudging me into a direction. I think it's so important to reframe whatever you're going through to something more empowering. Like every belief you have is either limiting or it's empowering. And so if you have a belief and you believe that you can't do this, or you believe that the world is going to end, or you believe that the next president is going to determine your entire life, that is how your life is going to turn out. You will make that based on your own actions. But if you somehow flip that to something positive, to something empowering to you, like, okay, yeah, this might be hard, but there's something I need to learn from this. Or, yeah, maybe this next thing that happens, whatever you're worried about happens in the election, something about that is going to be exactly what a ton of people need to be a catalyst and rise up. Whatever it is, like, it's your job to take responsibility for where you are in the world, despite all of the things that you cannot control. And so I think that's what I've really been working through all of this. I've also, I had all my speaking gigs canceled. I had a coaching program that I was about to launch. I pivoted it based on what I saw in the market. And so I've just been asking my audience what they want and trying to create from there, and moved out of LA, decided to have a baby. So there's definitely a lot of changes on the horizon, but I'm just right now, what is this guiding me towards?
Well, that's great. I'm having a baby and I've moved to Big Bear. That's some changes just in itself.
I know. People are like, what's new? And I'm like, oh, normally I'm used to just saying not much, but there's quite a few things.
Yeah. And then if you forget to say, you're like, oh my goodness, no, there is something new. I have a baby, I have a child, I have a human being inside of me. Wow. That's so exciting. Congratulations. Thank
you. That's a learning experience in itself.
Right. I bet you've got some more content for that. How to have your mindset straight when you've got hormones going on with a child inside of you.
Yeah, it's difficult. Or even just the things like, I was always afraid to get pregnant because I was just like, I've had so many body image things. I think that's going to be really difficult for me. And everyone always met that very dismissively and was just like, oh no, you'll see. When you are pregnant, it's just totally different. You're not even going to think about that, or, oh, that's silly. Why are you even... That's not true. Just because you get pregnant doesn't mean those things go away. And again, it's coming back to the tools and being compassionate with myself and saying, what would I be saying to my best friend if this were her instead of myself? Like, it's all, I don't know, when things are outside of your control, whether it's the world around you, your body, whatever, I think that can be difficult for a lot of people. So, but grateful for the growth is what I always come back to.
Absolutely. Everything is there to test us. And that's what I always share with my audiences. The universe is just there to test you, and all you've got to do is pass that test. And you're so right in what you're saying about we have a choice. Like, it doesn't matter who the next president is. Those things doesn't matter unless you allow it to matter to you. And you have a choice about how you want to be, how you want to stand up, how you want to add value to the world, and you're in control of your choices. So I am so glad that we had you on the podcast today. Thank you so much, Mellissa, for sharing your story with us. People are going to be like on the edges of their seat. It was amazing. And just tell everybody where they can go and find you, and all your podcasts, all your links, all the things.
My website is mindlove.com. So you can pretty much find anything from there. I'm also on social media at mindlovemelissa. And I send out a daily email every single weekday just with a little dose of inspiration called the Morning Mind Love. And so you can sign up for that on my website or by texting morning to 33777.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much, guys. Thank you for listening. Make sure that you go and give Mellissa a follow and sign up for, I'm going to be signing up for that. That sounds amazing. I was like, I need some of that too. That's amazing. Thank you. And guys, we will see you next week. Bye.
I at times have had a really clear vision 4 or 5 years down the road. I didn't always end up exactly where I thought I was going to, but the process of having a goal, working towards it, making steps